Combine like radicals. Like radicals have the same index, an index meaning if it's a square root, cube root, fourth root, so they have the same index and the same radicand, which means the number underneath that root. So let's look at a couple examples. If we had the square root of 2, like would be square root of 2, so the same one would be the square root of 2. Another one would be if we had the third root of 5x, a like radical would be the third root of 5x. The indexes are the same, meaning the roots are the same, and the radicands are the same, meaning the number underneath. So these would be like. So let's take a look here. We want to add or subtract if possible. For this first example, we have the square root, so we know the indexes are the same, and it's the square root of 5, so the radicand is the same. So that means we can combine these. So that means we have 2 minus 5, and 2 minus 5 is a negative 3 square roots of 5. If we look over here, we have a third root and a third root, so the index is the same, and we have an x and an x underneath our root, so the radicand is the same. So we can combine them. So we have our invisible 1 out in front, so that means this is a total of 8 cube roots of x. And our third example. Both have the square roots, so our index is the same. However, our radicands are not the same. We have a 7 and a 5. Since those are not the same, we cannot combine these. We can't add them together. So this is not possible. Let's look at some examples of ones that we know right now we can't combine them because the radicands aren't the same. But what happens if we simplify? So, right now we know we can't combine them because we have a 20 and a 45. So let's take our 20 and factor that out. So 20 can become 2 and 10, and 10 can become 2 and 5. So since we have the square root, we want groups of 2, so we can pull out one group of 2, and we're left with the square root of 5. Let's take a look at the 45 now. So if we have 45, we can split that up into 5 and 9, and 9 turns into 3 and 3. Same square roots, we want a group of 2, so we have one group of 2, so we can pull a 3 out. That means we're left with 1, 5. So once we simplified both of those radicals, we now end up with like radicals. We have the square root of 5. So 2 plus 3 is 5, square roots of 5. So let's look at the next problem. If we start with the square root of 18, we can say 18, and we can factor that to be 2 and 9. And 9 turns into 3 and 3. So we still want the square root, so we still want a group of 2, in which we have 2 3's. So we have our 6, we pulled out a 3, and we're left with a square root of 2. So now let's look at 8. 8 becomes 4 and 2, and we have 4 turning into 2 and 2. We want one group of 2's, so we had our 4, we pulled out a group of 2's, and we're left over with the square root of 2. And last one, 72. So 72 can turn into 8 and 9. 9 turns into 3 and 3. 8 is 4 and 2, and 4 turns into 2 and 2. Okay, I know I ran out of room, so I'm going to write my minus sign down here. We already have our 3. We want groups of 2. So we have one group of 2 that we can pull out, one group of 3, and we have a leftover 2. So if we simplify this, we know 6 times 3 is 18, square root of 2, plus 4 times 2, which is 8, square root of 2, minus 3 times 2 times 3. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, times 3 is 18, square root of 2. So now we have like radicals in all 3 of them, so we can combine them. So 18 plus 8 minus 18, that's going to become 8 with the square root of 2. And the last one. Take a look at square root of 50. We'll start with that one. So 50 we can rewrite to be 5 and 10 becomes 5 and 2. We're still working with the square root, so we want a group of 2. So we can pull out 1, 5, and that means we're left with a square root of 2. Then we can look at 32. 32 we can pull out, say 4 times 8. 4 becomes 2 and 2. 8 becomes 2 and 4 again becomes 2 and 2. So here we already have a 3 out in front. We can pull out one group of 2s, two groups of 2. We're left over with square root of 2. Bring down our minus 5 for the 18. 18 we've already done over here in this problem, so I'm just going to use that. So I know I can pull out one group of 3s, and I'm left with just square root of 2. So I just took this 18, used what I used over here to plug that in. So we still have 5 square root of 2, can't simplify that. 3 times 2 squared. Well, 2 squared is 4, so 4 times 3, so that means we end up with plus 12 square root of 2. Then negative 5 times 3 is 15. So this expression turns into this, so now we have 5 plus 12 minus 15, which becomes 2 with the square root of 2.